Have you ever felt like no matter how much you give to others, no matter how much you seek love, something still feels missing? Do you often wonder why? Despite your efforts to build meaningful relationships, you still end up feeling incomplete or dissatisfied. Well, today's video is going to change the way you think about love, relationships, and even yourself. Because what if I told you that the love you're desperately seeking isn't something you have to find outside of yourself? What if the love you desire is already inside of you, waiting for you to realize it, embrace it, and create it from within? Yes, you heard that right. Love is not something you go out and find. It's something you build from the inside out. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. We'll explore how to stop searching for love externally, how to stop relying on others to fulfill your emotional needs, and how to finally discover the love that's been within you all along. In this video, we'll uncover why the idea of searching for love in the wrong places leads us to feel unfulfilled, why self-love is not just a buzzword but a necessary foundation for everything in your life, and most importantly, how creating love from within can transform the way you relate to others and yourself. Before we jump in, I want to remind you to like this video if you're ready to take the first step in creating love from within. Share this video with someone you know who's been looking for love in all the wrong places. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful insights like this, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Oh, and if you find this video truly impactful, you can always show some love through super thanks. Any contribution helps us keep this channel going. Now let's get started. Many of us have been told time and time again that the key to happiness is self-love. We read books, watch videos, and repeat affirmations, convincing ourselves that we love who we are. Yet, despite all this effort, the love we seek always seems just out of reach. If you've ever wondered why that's the case, you're not alone. It's as if we're doing everything right, but still, true connection seems elusive. What's missing? Why does it feel like no matter how much we try to love ourselves, love from others remains distant? The truth might be simpler than you think, and it comes from an insightful, powerful idea by the legendary Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. Carl Jung's theories on the psyche, the shadow, and personal growth offer a perspective that can radically transform how we understand love and relationships. Jung's work is often dense and complex, but at its core, it presents a simple yet profound truth. The love we seek from others is deeply connected to the relationship we have with ourselves. This isn't about self-help tips or motivational quotes. This is about understanding the deep, unconscious forces at play within us. Jung believed that our relationships are not random, they are a reflection of our own internal world, of parts of ourselves that remain unresolved or hidden. If you've ever found yourself drawn to a certain type of person, or repelled by certain behaviors in others, it's not just coincidence. These patterns are mirrors, reflecting aspects of yourself that need attention. Jung's concept of the shadow self, the parts of ourselves that we deny or repress, holds the key to understanding this dynamic. Rather than accepting only the positive parts of ourselves, Jung proposed that true healing and self-love come from embracing our entire being, including our flaws, insecurities, and even the qualities we dislike in others. For example, consider a scenario where you are consistently attracted to people who make you feel insecure. Maybe they are confident in a way that you wish you could be, or perhaps they seem to have it all together. Initially, you might think that what you're seeking in them is validation, a sense of being good enough. But when you dig deeper, you might realize that the reason you are drawn to them isn't just about their qualities, it's about the qualities within you that you have not yet allowed yourself to express. Perhaps you admire their boldness because, deep down, you feel constrained by your own shyness or self-doubt. The very traits that make you feel small in the presence of others are actually a reflection of what you have not yet integrated into yourself. Jung's idea of projection is incredibly powerful here. When you find yourself attracted to someone or frustrated by them, it's not just their behavior you're reacting to. You are reacting to the traits in them that are either underdeveloped or repressed in your own psyche. Jung argued that our emotional reactions, both positive and negative, are projections of our shadow. The way we perceive others is shaped by the way we view ourselves, often without even realizing it. Think about how you react to people who have traits that bother you, perhaps arrogance or laziness. When you're irritated by someone's arrogance, it might be because, deep down, you fear being perceived as arrogant. You may not even consciously acknowledge this fear, but it plays a significant role in how you relate to that person. If you see arrogance as a weakness in others, it could be because there's a part of you that struggles to accept your own potential for self-assurance. In this way, your emotional reaction isn't just about that person's behavior. It's about an unresolved issue within yourself. Jung's insight suggests that the more we resist acknowledging our shadow traits, the more they show up in our relationships with others. This understanding of projection can be particularly eye-opening when it comes to the people who frustrate us the most. Often, the people who push our buttons are doing so because they're showing us a part of ourselves that we have yet to face. A relationship with a friend, colleague, or romantic partner may seem like a series of external problems that need solving. But if we stop and ask ourselves the right questions, we can uncover what these relationships are truly teaching us. Take, for instance, the example of a colleague who frequently challenges your authority. You might react defensively, viewing their behavior as a personal attack. But if you pause and ask yourself, what is this situation triggering in me? You might find that their challenge to your authority reflects your own insecurities. Maybe deep down, you're uncertain about your leadership skills or afraid that you won't be respected. By recognizing this, you can begin to shift your response, not by defending your position, but by addressing the insecurity within yourself that the colleague's behavior is triggering. When you begin to understand this dynamic, this relational mirror, you start to view difficult people and challenging situations differently. They stop being just obstacles in your life and start becoming tools for growth. The person who frustrates you the most might actually be the very one who is pushing you to confront your own hidden fears, unresolved emotions, or unmet needs. This is where Jung's concept of integration comes into play. Integration is about embracing the parts of ourselves that we've denied or suppressed. It's about owning the qualities that we've hidden away, whether they are dark traits like jealousy, anger, or insecurity, or more positive qualities that we haven't yet had the courage to express like confidence, creativity, or passion. By integrating these parts into our conscious self, we stop projecting them onto others, and we become more whole, more authentic. The more we accept our full range of emotions and experiences, the less we need to seek external validation. An excellent way to start integrating your shadow is through self-reflection. Whenever you feel an intense emotional reaction, whether it's attraction, frustration, or anger, take a step back and ask yourself, what is this reaction teaching me about myself? Often, the answers to this question are deeply revealing. For example, if you feel an intense attraction to someone who seems to possess qualities that you admire, it could be because those are qualities you have not fully developed within yourself. If you find someone's behavior triggering, take a moment to reflect on whether that trait might exist within you, even if it's something you're ashamed to admit. Jung believed that self-awareness was the key to unlocking deeper, more meaningful relationships. As you gain more insight into the aspects of yourself that you've previously ignored or suppressed, you begin to make different choices in your relationships. You start attracting people who reflect the healthiest, most integrated version of yourself, rather than those who merely reflect your unresolved issues. When we begin to integrate our shadow, we no longer seek out relationships that fill our voids. Instead, we begin to form relationships based on wholeness, not need. True love, according to Jung, is not about finding someone who makes us feel complete. It's about becoming whole ourselves. Only then can we truly love from a place of authenticity, not from a place of insecurity or lack. One way to approach this integration process is to practice radical acceptance. This involves acknowledging the parts of yourself that you have been avoiding or rejecting, whether they are traits, memories, or emotions that you have judged as negative. For example, if you are uncomfortable with your own vulnerability, you might find yourself judging others for being too emotional or sensitive. By accepting your own vulnerability, you can start to show compassion to others who express it as well. Over time, this self-acceptance allows you to integrate those shadow parts, which ultimately makes you a more compassionate and whole person. This process isn't easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. It requires courage and patience to face parts of yourself that you've hidden or ignored for a long time. But the payoff is immense. When you begin to love yourself unconditionally, when you stop relying on others to fill your emotional void, you create a space within yourself for more genuine, meaningful relationships. And as you continue this journey of self-discovery, you'll find that the love you were seeking outside of yourself was always within you. So, while we continue to search for love and connection in the world around us, perhaps the real journey is inward. By understanding and embracing the deepest parts of ourselves, the parts we are often too afraid to face, we can begin to create the relationships we've always longed for. And, just like Carl Jung taught us, it's in this integration of light and shadow that true love can finally blossom. When we engage with others, whether in romantic relationships, friendships, or professional connections, we often find ourselves drawn to certain traits or, conversely, repelled by specific behaviors. At first glance, these reactions might seem like mere happenstance or just the product of personal preferences. However, according to Carl Jung's work, these reactions are anything but random. In fact, they may be the most profound reflections of our inner world. Jung proposed the idea of relational mirrors, where every relationship, whether positive or negative, acts as a mirror, reflecting unresolved aspects of ourselves. By diving into this concept, we can explore how these reflections reveal critical insights into our psyche and how understanding this dynamic can ultimately lead to personal growth. The relational mirror concept works under the premise that every person we encounter holds a mirror up to us, reflecting not only the traits we admire, but also the qualities we disdain or fear. If you've ever felt intensely drawn to someone, it's important to ask yourself why. Often, the qualities in that person that attract you may be traits you wish to develop within yourself, or perhaps qualities you have suppressed. Conversely, when someone triggers frustration or anger in you, it may be because they reflect something within yourself that you're either ashamed of or unwilling to confront. To better understand this, consider a situation where someone at work continually makes you feel insecure. Perhaps they are more outspoken or confident in meetings, traits that you might envy or find irritating. Instead of attributing your emotional response solely to that person's behavior, the key is to ask yourself, what is this person reflecting about me? It could be that their confidence highlights your own insecurity or fear of being judged. Maybe you've suppressed your own desire to speak up or share your ideas because you've been afraid of criticism. In this scenario, the person who seems to have it all together is actually mirroring back the part of you that you've hidden away due to self-doubt. Jung's theory of projection plays a crucial role here. Projection is when we take aspects of ourselves, often those that are repressed or denied, and assign them to someone else. This happens unconsciously, meaning we don't always realize that we are projecting our internal struggles onto the people around us. For instance, if you feel irritated by someone's arrogance, it could be that deep down, you fear being perceived as arrogant yourself. Rather than acknowledging this fear, you might lash out or distance yourself from the person who reminds you of that hidden part of yourself. This concept of projection extends beyond negative traits. We are also attracted to people who exhibit qualities we admire, but may feel we lack in ourselves. If you find yourself captivated by someone's creativity or spontaneity, it might be because those are qualities you've repressed. Perhaps you've always been the responsible, structured person, and in contrast, this person's carefree nature feels liberating and appealing. But instead of just admiring these qualities from afar, this attraction serves as an invitation to integrate those same qualities into your own life. At the heart of the relational mirror is a deep, often uncomfortable truth. Our emotional reactions to others are rarely about them. They are reflections of us. Whether we feel love, admiration, irritation, or anger, these emotions are signaling something about our inner world. So, the question isn't about why someone else behaves the way they do. It's about what that person's behavior reveals about us. It's about digging deeper into our own psyche to understand what these reactions say about our unresolved conflicts or unaddressed needs. Take, for example, a situation where you find yourself constantly drawn to partners who are emotionally unavailable. At first, this might seem like an unfortunate pattern, but if you stop and ask yourself, what is this person reflecting back to me? You might uncover something revealing about your own emotional state. Perhaps, on some level, you've learned to keep your own emotions at bay because you fear vulnerability or have difficulty trusting others. These fears and patterns often stem from past experiences, such as childhood wounds, and they continue to shape the way we engage with others. The partners you attract are simply mirroring those emotional walls you've built. Understanding that our relationships are reflections can be a powerful tool for personal growth. When you experience an emotional reaction, whether it's positive or negative, the first step is to pause and reflect on what that reaction reveals about you. For instance, if you're angry because someone cut you off in traffic, instead of just focusing on how rude or inconsiderate the driver is, ask yourself, why does this trigger such strong anger in me? Perhaps you're someone who prides yourself on being considerate and respectful, and the driver's actions feel like a personal affront to those values. The irritation may be an indication of your own deep-seated need for control or a fear of being disregarded. By exploring these internal triggers, you can begin to recognize the underlying beliefs or insecurities that influence your reactions. Similarly, if you feel intense attraction to someone who embodies qualities you admire, it's a sign that those qualities may be dormant within you. Perhaps you feel a deep pull towards someone's creativity because, inside, you have a latent artistic side that you haven't yet expressed. Instead of seeing the other person's creativity as something distant or unattainable, use it as a reminder that you too have the capacity to express yourself in that way. The person you admire is not so much a beacon of unattainable greatness, but a mirror that reflects what is possible for you if you allow yourself to grow and step into your own potential. Recognizing that people around us are mirrors can be liberating. It shifts the focus from blaming others for how we feel to taking responsibility for our own emotional reactions. Rather than blaming a partner for being emotionally distant or accusing a friend of being selfish, you can ask, what is this person showing me about myself? This shift allows for a more compassionate and introspective approach to relationships. It invites you to take responsibility for your own emotions and see how your reactions are shaped by unresolved conflicts, unmet needs, or hidden aspects of yourself. However, this process of self-reflection and projection isn't always easy. It requires a willingness to confront parts of ourselves that we might prefer to avoid. It's uncomfortable to admit that we may have traits we find distasteful in others, or that we may be attracted to people who reflect our own unhealed wounds. But it is in these uncomfortable truths that growth lies. By becoming aware of what we are projecting onto others, we can start to heal those parts of ourselves and move toward greater self-acceptance. One way to practice this awareness is through journaling or introspection. After a particularly emotional interaction with someone, take some time to write down your thoughts and feelings. Ask yourself, what did this person trigger in me? And what does this reaction tell me about myself? The more you engage in this kind of self-inquiry, the clearer your relational patterns will become. Over time, you'll notice recurring themes or emotional triggers that point to deeper issues that need attention. This is the first step toward integrating your shadow and healing the parts of yourself that are reflected in others. When you begin to see relationships as mirrors, you can start to approach them with a sense of curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of feeling frustrated by someone who frustrates you, You can view them as a teacher, one who is showing you something important about yourself. For example, if you're repeatedly drawn to people who need rescuing, it might be a reflection of your own need for care or validation. Rather than seeing these relationships as problematic, you can view them as opportunities to explore your own emotional needs and learn to meet them in healthier ways. Understanding relationships as reflections is also key to developing more authentic connections with others. When we stop projecting our own unresolved issues onto others, we can begin to interact with them from a place of authenticity. We no longer need to rely on others to mirror our insecurities or unmet needs. Instead, we can form relationships based on mutual respect, compassion, and shared understanding. We can love others without needing them to complete us, and we can engage in meaningful connections that reflect our own inner wholeness. The relational mirror concept also teaches us that our attraction to certain people or behaviors is not an accident. Every relationship, whether positive or negative, serves as a mirror to our internal world. By becoming aware of the projections we make onto others, we can start to unravel the complex layers of our own psyche. As we do so, we become more self-aware and more capable of forming deep, meaningful relationships. The relationships we attract will no longer be reflections of our unresolved issues, but will instead mirror the healthy, integrated version of ourselves that we are working toward. At the heart of our interactions with others lies a complex web of emotions that can sometimes seem difficult to navigate. Two of the most prominent emotional reactions we experience in relationships are attraction and aversion. These feelings are often dismissed as simple preferences or gut reactions. But when we dive deeper into the psychology behind them, they reveal profound insights into our own inner world. According to Carl Jung's concept of the shadow and relational mirrors, the way we feel drawn to or repelled by certain people can tell us a lot about the aspects of ourselves that we either admire or reject. When we feel drawn to someone, it's easy to assume that the attraction is based purely on their external characteristics, perhaps their charm, wit, appearance, or confidence. However, Jungian psychology suggests that attraction is often a reflection of qualities within ourselves that we have either not yet fully developed or have repressed. It's a mirror that shows us parts of our own potential that we have yet to explore. If you feel an intense attraction to someone, especially for reasons that go beyond superficial traits, it could be an indication that you are admiring qualities in them that you haven't fully embraced within yourself. For example, let's say you're consistently drawn to individuals who are creative and free-spirited. Perhaps you find yourself captivated by their ability to think outside the box and pursue their passions without fear of judgment. On the surface, you might believe you're simply attracted to their creativity, but a deeper exploration may reveal something else. You might be subconsciously longing to express your own creativity, but have been holding back due to fear of failure or self-doubt. This person becomes a mirror, reflecting back to you the creative potential that lies dormant within yourself. Your attraction to them is not just about their external attributes, it's about the aspects of yourself that you are not fully allowing to emerge. Attraction can also be driven by qualities that we admire, but may not feel comfortable expressing. For instance, someone who is particularly outgoing or assertive might catch your attention if you have struggled with shyness or passivity. You might find their confidence magnetic because, deep down, you wish you could express yourself with the same level of ease. Their behavior serves as a reminder of your own potential to assert yourself in the world. It's a sign that you may be craving more self-expression, but haven't yet taken the steps to claim that part of yourself. Understanding the deeper emotional motivations behind our attraction is a powerful tool for self-discovery. Instead of merely enjoying someone's company because of their outward qualities, we can reflect on why we are drawn to them. This reflection helps us become more self-aware of our own desires, unmet needs, and untapped potential. The more we recognize that our attraction is rooted in our own psychological landscape, the more we can consciously integrate those qualities into our own lives, making us more whole and authentic individuals. On the flip side, aversion, our strong dislike or frustration with someone, can be just as revealing, if not more so, than attraction. It's easy to assume that when someone bothers us, the issue lies purely with them. After all, their behavior might be rude, inconsiderate, or downright irritating. But, as Jung suggested, our aversions often reveal parts of ourselves that we are unwilling to accept or acknowledge. These emotional reactions are not random. They reflect aspects of ourselves that we may have repressed or denied. The person who irritates you, frustrates you, or triggers strong negative feelings is often acting as a mirror, showing you parts of yourself that you've been avoiding. For instance, imagine you find yourself feeling deeply annoyed by someone's arrogance. You might think, I can't stand people who think they're always right. However, if you dig deeper, you might realize that your irritation comes from a deeper insecurity within yourself. Perhaps you fear being perceived as arrogant or superior, and the other person's confidence feels like a threat to your own sense of worth. The arrogance you despise in them may actually reflect a part of you that you haven't fully accepted, perhaps an unacknowledged desire for recognition or admiration. Instead of simply dismissing this person, you can ask yourself, why does this behavior bother me so much? This question can lead to a deeper understanding of your own insecurities and the aspects of yourself that you're unwilling to embrace. Similarly, if you feel irritated by someone's laziness or lack of motivation, it could reflect your own fear of not being productive enough or not living up to your own standards. Perhaps you've been pushing yourself too hard to achieve success, and the other person's lack of ambition highlights your own underlying anxiety about not doing enough. Their laziness might be a reminder to examine your own relationship with work and achievement, and to question whether you are overcompensating for deeper feelings of inadequacy. Jungian psychology teaches us that these intense emotional reactions, whether attraction or aversion, are not just about the other person. They are about us, and what they reveal about our own psychological state. When we feel a strong emotional response, whether positive or negative, it's a signal that something within us needs attention. These emotional reactions provide us with valuable clues about our inner world, helping us uncover parts of ourselves that are still hidden, rejected, or underdeveloped. One of the most profound ways to use these insights is through self-reflection. When you feel strongly drawn to someone or frustrated by them, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what is it about this person that triggers such a strong emotional reaction in me? This question helps to shift the focus from blaming the other person to understanding your own internal state. By acknowledging the feelings that arise in these situations, you can begin to explore the underlying reasons for them, and in doing so, learn more about your own needs, desires, and fears. Let's take another example. Suppose you often feel irritated when someone takes charge or tries to take control in a situation. You might immediately think that they are domineering or overbearing. However, if you take a step back, you might realize that your frustration stems from your own need for control. Perhaps you feel uncomfortable when you're not in charge, or you fear being powerless. The behavior you're judging in the other person may be a reflection of your own unconscious desire to dominate or maintain control. By recognizing this, you can begin to question your need for control and explore healthier ways of dealing with power dynamics in relationships. The key to transforming these emotional reactions lies in self-awareness. By paying attention to the patterns of attraction and aversion in relationships, you can start to unravel the deeper motivations behind them. Are you constantly attracted to people who are confident because you wish you could express your own confidence? Do you feel repelled by people who are laid back because you fear being seen as lazy? These patterns offer valuable insights into your own psychological makeup and can guide you toward greater self-acceptance. Once you begin to understand the reasons behind your attractions and aversions, you can start to take conscious action to integrate these insights into your life. For example, if you recognize that you're drawn to confident individuals because you struggle with self-esteem, you can begin to work on building your own self-worth. This might involve taking small steps toward expressing yourself more confidently, setting boundaries, and taking risks that challenge your fears. Similarly, if you feel repelled by people's arrogance because you secretly fear being perceived as arrogant, you can work on embracing your own sense of worth without needing validation from others. Attraction and aversion are not simply reactions to external stimuli, they are reflections of our internal world. They reveal our deepest desires, fears, and insecurities. When we take the time to understand these emotions, we can gain profound insights into who we are and why we act the way we do. These insights are not just about analyzing others. They are about recognizing and embracing the parts of ourselves that we have either neglected or rejected. By doing so, we can become more whole, integrated individuals, and our relationships can become deeper, more authentic, and more fulfilling. The path to self-awareness begins with understanding our emotional responses to others, and ultimately, it's this understanding that leads to healing and growth. Difficult relationships are often seen as obstacles, as challenges to be avoided or endured. When someone constantly frustrates us or triggers strong negative emotions, our instinct is often to blame them for our discomfort. However, from a deeper psychological perspective, especially through the lens of Carl Jung's ideas about the shadow and karmic patterns, these difficult relationships may actually serve as some of the most valuable opportunities for self-growth. The people who challenge us the most are often the very ones who can help us uncover hidden aspects of ourselves, offering us a chance to heal and integrate parts of our psyche that we've been avoiding. When we think about difficult relationships, whether in our personal or professional lives, the natural response is often to focus on the other person's behavior. We may feel justified in our frustration or anger, believing that if the other person would just change, the problem will be solved. But this perspective misses the deeper purpose of these relationships. The people who irritate us, challenge our boundaries, or make us feel uncomfortable are not merely there to provoke us or cause us distress. They often serve as mirrors, reflecting back to us the parts of ourselves that need attention, healing, or growth. These individuals are like karmic messengers that come into our lives not by chance, but with a purpose, to bring us face to face with unresolved emotional wounds, unconscious fears, or repressed parts of ourselves that need to be integrated. Take the example of a colleague who consistently undermines you in meetings. On the surface, their actions might seem petty or unjustified. You might feel angry or hurt by their behavior, and your first instinct could be to think, if only they would stop, everything would be fine. But if you take a step back and reflect on what this relationship is showing you, you may realize that the colleague's actions are actually highlighting insecurities or unresolved conflicts within yourself. Maybe you've been struggling with self-doubt or imposter syndrome, and this colleague's behavior is triggering those feelings of inadequacy. Instead of focusing on their actions alone, you can start to ask yourself, what is it about their behavior that triggers such a strong emotional reaction in me? In situations like this, the colleague becomes a karmic messenger. They're not just an annoying presence in your life, but someone who is showing you the internal work that you need to do. They may be reflecting back your fears or insecurities. And through this relationship, you are being given an opportunity to confront and heal those wounds. The more you reflect on what the person is triggering in you, the clearer it becomes that your emotional reaction is not solely about them, it's about the parts of yourself that need attention. This shift in perspective allows you to see the situation as an opportunity for growth rather than an obstacle to avoid. Jungian psychology emphasizes the idea of projection, where we project our unresolved issues onto others. When we interact with people who trigger strong emotional reactions, it's often because we are projecting parts of ourselves onto them. These projections may involve aspects of our shadow, such as hidden fears, repressed desires, or unacknowledged strengths. For example, if you're irritated by someone's arrogance, it may be because deep down, you are afraid of being perceived as arrogant yourself. Rather than recognizing this fear within yourself, You might lash out at the other person. But by reframing the situation and recognizing that the person's behavior is a reflection of your own internal struggles, you can begin to take responsibility for your emotional reactions and use the relationship as an opportunity to heal. The idea of karmic messengers also suggests that there's a certain fate or divine timing involved in these difficult relationships. It's as if the universe, or your higher self, sends these individuals into your life at precisely the right moment, not to punish you, but to help you learn and grow. They are the teachers you never asked for, but the ones you need in order to evolve. These messengers often show up in the form of difficult people or challenging circumstances, and while the lessons may be uncomfortable or painful, they are exactly what you need to move forward in your personal development. Consider the scenario of a difficult romantic relationship. Perhaps you find yourself repeatedly dating people who are emotionally unavailable or who don't treat you the way you deserve. At first, it might seem like a simple pattern of bad luck. But if you dig deeper, you may uncover a more profound reason behind these relationships. Maybe, on some level, you fear intimacy or have unresolved issues with vulnerability. These patterns are not random. They are karmic lessons that you're meant to learn. The people you attract into your life are reflecting back your own unresolved issues and providing you with an opportunity to heal those wounds. Rather than blaming your partner or feeling resentful, you can begin to ask yourself, what is this relationship showing me about my own fears and emotional patterns? This shift from blame to self-reflection is crucial in transforming difficult relationships into opportunities for growth. Instead of seeing the other person as the problem, you start to focus on what you can learn about yourself. This mindset allows you to move from a place of defensiveness to a place of curiosity and understanding. Instead of reacting defensively when someone challenges you, you can respond with compassion, recognizing that their actions are not about you, but about what they are projecting onto you. This doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or allowing toxic relationships to continue, but it does mean that you stop taking things personally and begin to understand the deeper dynamics at play. One example of this shift can be seen in a situation where someone criticizes you harshly. Instead of reacting with anger or defensiveness, you can pause and ask yourself, why does this criticism bother me so much? Is there a part of me that secretly agrees with it, or a part of myself that I'm not accepting? This kind of self-reflection allows you to see that the other person's criticism is not a reflection of your worth, but rather an opportunity to examine your own insecurities. By understanding what the criticism triggers in you, you can begin to address those underlying issues and move toward greater self-acceptance. One of the most transformative aspects of difficult relationships is that they provide us with the chance to practice emotional maturity and self-regulation. It's easy to react impulsively when we feel hurt or frustrated, but when we recognize that these emotions are often projections of our own unresolved issues, we can begin to take a more measured approach. Instead of reacting defensively or angrily, we can choose to respond with understanding and empathy. This doesn't mean tolerating toxic behavior, but it does mean taking responsibility for our own emotional responses and using difficult interactions as opportunities for growth. For example, imagine you are in a situation where a friend constantly cancels plans or doesn't follow through on commitments. It's easy to feel frustrated or hurt by their actions. But if you reflect on the situation, you might realize that your reaction is more about your own fear of abandonment or rejection than about your friend's behavior. By recognizing this, you can address your own feelings of insecurity and begin to communicate more openly with your friend about your needs, rather than silently harboring resentment. In doing so, you not only improve the relationship, but you also learn to heal your own emotional wounds. The key to transforming difficult relationships into opportunities for learning is to shift from a mindset of victimhood to one of empowerment. When we see ourselves as victims of others' behavior, we disempower ourselves and remain stuck in patterns of blame and frustration. But when we shift to a mindset of empowerment, we recognize that we have the power to choose how we respond to difficult people and situations. We stop seeing these challenges as obstacles to avoid, and instead, we see them as opportunities to grow, heal, and become more self-aware. This shift also allows us to develop compassion for others. When we understand that the difficult behavior of others is often a reflection of their own unresolved issues, we can stop taking their actions personally and respond with greater empathy. We can see that their behavior may not be about us at all, but rather about what they are struggling with internally. This perspective enables us to build deeper, more compassionate relationships, and to move away from reactive behaviors that only perpetuate conflict. Ultimately, the most difficult relationships in our lives often hold the greatest potential for growth. They force us to confront our own fears, insecurities, and unresolved emotional wounds. By recognizing these relationships as karmic messengers, we can begin to see them as opportunities to learn more about ourselves and to heal. Shifting from a mindset of blame to one of understanding and self-reflection allows us to move through life with greater emotional maturity, compassion, and self-awareness. The people who challenge us the most are often the ones who can teach us the most, and by embracing this perspective, we can turn even the most difficult relationships into profound opportunities for transformation. The concept of the shadow, as developed by Carl Jung, is one of the most profound and transformative ideas in the realm of psychology. Often misunderstood, the shadow is not just a collection of negative or dark aspects of our personality, as is commonly assumed, but also encompasses traits, desires, and talents that we have repressed or failed to acknowledge. These are the parts of ourselves that we may fear, deny, or deem unacceptable, but they are equally important to our overall well-being and growth. The process of integrating both the shadow and the light is what leads to true personal growth, self-acceptance, and ultimately, unconditional love. When we talk about the shadow, we often think about the negative traits we dislike about ourselves, perhaps a temper, jealousy, or insecurity. But the shadow is much more than that. It also includes the positive traits that we've suppressed or failed to acknowledge, such as creativity, assertiveness, or desire for success. For instance, a person who prides themselves on being humble may push down any desire to seek recognition or success. These repressed desires are not inherently negative, but when denied or ignored, they can cause inner conflict and prevent us from becoming whole. In this sense, the shadow encompasses all aspects of ourselves that we have not yet embraced. Let's take a concrete example. Imagine someone who has spent their life being taught to be self-effacing, never seeking attention or praise. They may deny their own desire for recognition, convinced that it's selfish or inappropriate. However, this suppression can lead to a feeling of emptiness or dissatisfaction in their life, as if something is missing. The more they suppress their natural desire for acknowledgement, the more the shadow grows silent but powerful. Over time, this repressed need for recognition may manifest in subtle, unconscious ways, such as passive-aggressive behavior or feelings of resentment toward others who receive attention. By recognizing and integrating this desire for recognition, the person can learn to honor their own worth in healthy ways, without shame or guilt. This integration of the shadow can lead to a more fulfilling life, where they can freely express both humility and a healthy sense of self-worth. The integration of the shadow begins with acceptance. Accepting the shadow means recognizing that all parts of ourselves, those we deem good or bad, are valuable and necessary for our personal development. In order to truly love ourselves and others, we must first accept all aspects of who we are, including those parts we may find uncomfortable or unappealing. This does not mean acting on every impulse or embracing negative traits without consideration, but means recognizing and owning them, rather than repressing or denying them. For example, if a person has a tendency toward jealousy, the first step in integrating the shadow aspect is not to reject it or feel ashamed of it, but to acknowledge it. They might ask themselves, "Why do I feel jealous?" What does this reveal about my own insecurities or unmet needs? Through this self-inquiry, they may discover that their jealousy stems from a fear of inadequacy or a lack of self-esteem. Once this is recognized, the person can work on addressing the root cause, perhaps by cultivating more self-confidence or learning to trust others more deeply. Rather than seeing jealousy as a flaw to be eliminated, they begin to see it as a signal, a reflection of an area of their life that requires attention and healing. Another example might be someone who has always tried to suppress their anger, believing it to be a bad emotion. They may have been taught to be calm and composed at all costs, equating anger with being out of control or irrational. However, anger, when channeled appropriately, can be a powerful force for change. It can serve as a signal that something in a person's life is out of alignment or that boundaries are being violated. By integrating their anger, the person doesn't have to act on it destructively, but rather use it as a source of energy to address injustices in their life or to assert their needs more clearly. They learn that anger is not inherently bad. It is just another part of their emotional landscape that needs to be understood and expressed in healthy ways. The benefits of integrating the shadow. When we begin to embrace and integrate the shadow, we start to move toward wholeness. Wholeness is not about achieving perfection or becoming free of negative traits. It's about accepting and integrating all aspects of ourselves, both light and dark. This process allows us to live more authentically, with greater self-awareness and compassion, both for ourselves and others. One of the most significant benefits of shadow integration is the ability to love ourselves unconditionally. Self-love is not about accepting only the parts of ourselves that we deem acceptable or desirable. True self-love requires us to embrace our full humanity, including our flaws and weaknesses. When we accept the shadow, we stop rejecting parts of ourselves, and instead, we develop a more compassionate, holistic relationship with ourselves. This self-acceptance then ripples outward, affecting how we relate to others. For instance, consider a person who has spent their life hiding their need for affection and emotional connection, perhaps because they were taught to be independent and self-sufficient. By recognizing and embracing this need for closeness, they can start to build healthier, more fulfilling relationships. They no longer have to hide behind a mask of self-sufficiency or pretend they don't need others. Instead, they can express their true desires and receive love in a way that feels genuine and fulfilling. The more they integrate this shadow aspect of their personality, the more they become capable of experiencing love in its purest form without the fear of vulnerability or rejection. Another profound benefit of shadow integration is the ability to live with greater emotional balance. When we deny parts of ourselves, those aspects can manifest in unconscious ways, creating emotional turbulence and inner conflict. For example, someone who represses their fear of failure may overcompensate by constantly striving for success, driven by an unconscious need to prove their worth. They may feel a sense of internal pressure and anxiety that never fully subsides, even when outwardly they appear successful. By integrating this fear of failure, acknowledging it, and understanding its roots, they can approach their goals with greater calm and confidence. They no longer feel the need to constantly prove themselves, and they can experience success without the underlying anxiety. Living with emotional balance also means that we stop projecting our repressed emotions onto others. As we accept our shadow, we stop seeing others as the source of our emotional turmoil. Instead, we recognize that the discomfort we feel in others often stems from our own unresolved issues. For example, if you feel irritated by someone's tendency to interrupt, it may be because you're uncomfortable with your own tendency to assert yourself. By addressing this discomfort within yourself, you can stop projecting it onto others and start interacting in a more balanced and empathetic way. Moreover, integrating the shadow allows us to develop a greater sense of personal power. Personal power doesn't come from controlling others or suppressing our emotions. It comes from embracing who we are, accepting both our strengths and weaknesses, and standing in our truth. When we integrate the shadow, we stop living in fear of our dark parts, and instead, we become more fully embodied. This sense of authenticity allows us to make choices that align with our true self, rather than with external expectations or societal pressures. We become more confident, more empowered, and more capable of creating the life we truly desire. The final benefit of shadow integration is that it leads to healthier relationships. When we accept ourselves fully, we no longer need to project our unmet needs or suppressed emotions onto others. We can relate to others from a place of authenticity and self-awareness. Our relationships become more genuine, and we no longer seek to control or manipulate others in an attempt to fulfill our own unmet needs. Instead, we enter into relationships with a sense of wholeness, contributing to mutual growth and support. We no longer look for others to complete us because we already feel complete within ourselves. This transformation in relationships is particularly evident in romantic partnerships. When we integrate our shadow, we stop seeking a partner to fulfill all our emotional needs. We no longer expect them to fix us or make us whole. Instead, we approach relationships as opportunities for shared growth and connection. We love from a place of fullness rather than need, and we bring our whole selves to the table. This shift in perspective allows us to create more balanced, fulfilling, and loving relationships. In conclusion, integrating the shadow is a transformative process that leads to a greater sense of wholeness, self-acceptance, and emotional balance. It is through the acceptance of both our light and dark aspects that we become truly empowered to love ourselves and others. The shadow is not something to fear or repress. It is a vital part of who we are, containing the potential for deep healing, growth, and self-discovery. By embracing the shadow, we can live more authentically, create healthier relationships, and experience a deeper sense of inner peace. This integration is the key to becoming whole and loving ourselves unconditionally, and in doing so, we can truly transform our lives. Love is often portrayed as something external, a goal we must reach, a feeling we must seek, or a state we hope to achieve once we find the right person. Many of us spend years searching for love outside of ourselves, whether through romantic relationships, friendships, or external validation. We are conditioned to believe that love is something that comes from other people or situations. However, true love is not something to be found. It is something that we must create within ourselves. The idea that love is a journey rather than a destination completely shifts how we approach relationships, emotional well-being, and self-discovery. Love is not an external force that you seek out. It is something you create from within. The first step in creating love within yourself is realizing that self-love is not a destination, it is a journey. Too often, people view self-love as something they will achieve only once they are good enough, or once they meet certain expectations. The idea is that you must be perfect, or at least meet a certain standard of success or happiness before you can truly love yourself. This kind of thinking is pervasive in society, where people are often judged based on external achievements, appearance, or social status. However, the truth is that self-love is a natural state, one that we are all entitled to from the moment we are born. It is not a reward for doing things right or for being a particular kind of person. It is a fundamental right and a necessary part of being human. Consider the example of someone who constantly criticizes themselves for not achieving their goals. Perhaps they didn't get the promotion at work, or they didn't live up to their own expectations in their personal life. This person might feel like they need to earn love by fixing these things, by being more successful, more accomplished, or more attractive. However, this mindset places love on a pedestal, as if it's something reserved for the perfect person. In reality, this person is already worthy of love simply because they are alive and their self-worth should not be contingent upon achievements or societal validation. By learning to love themselves in spite of their imperfections, they can begin to break free from the constant cycle of self-criticism and embrace themselves as they are. Self-love is not something that happens overnight, nor is it something that can be forced. It is a practice, a continuous journey that involves accepting ourselves fully, our flaws, our mistakes, our imperfections, and our strengths. We all have parts of ourselves that we are uncomfortable with or that we may have been taught to suppress. Yet these parts are also integral to who we are. The more we reject them, the more we push love away. True self-love means embracing all parts of ourselves and learning to see our flaws as opportunities for growth rather than as obstacles. It involves being kind to ourselves when we make mistakes, forgiving ourselves when we fall short, and acknowledging our strengths without becoming arrogant. For example, think of someone who has always struggled with self-esteem. They've been told their entire life that they weren't good enough or that they had to be perfect in order to be loved. Over time, this person may internalize those messages, thinking that love and acceptance are things that must be earned through achievement. However, as they begin to practice self-love, they realize that their worth is not based on perfection. They begin to practice small acts of kindness towards themselves, like speaking to themselves with compassion instead of criticism or taking care of their emotional well-being without judgment. This practice doesn't happen all at once, but over time, it gradually shifts their internal dialogue. They no longer see themselves as broken or unworthy, but as a person deserving of love simply for being who they are. Another aspect of creating love from within is the ability to cultivate self-compassion. Too many people live with an inner critic constantly reminding them of their shortcomings. This inner voice can be so harsh that it drowns out any feelings of self-worth or affection. But self-compassion involves treating ourselves as we would treat a friend or loved one, with kindness, patience, and understanding. Instead of berating ourselves for our mistakes, we learn to offer comfort and reassurance. This may sound simple, but it's incredibly powerful. When we practice self-compassion, we are shifting from a place of self-rejection to a place of acceptance and nurturing. Imagine a scenario where you fail to meet a deadline at work, and your first instinct is to feel worthless, ashamed, or defeated, instead of dwelling in that negative space. Self-compassion would prompt you to acknowledge the mistake, but also offer yourself forgiveness. You might say to yourself, "It's okay to make mistakes. I will do better next time, but I am still worthy of love and respect, even if I didn't succeed this time." This shift in thinking doesn't mean ignoring the need for improvement, but it helps you move forward without drowning in self-doubt. Self-compassion frees us from the chains of perfectionism and allows us to embrace the fullness of who we are. Furthermore, the practice of self-love requires us to prioritize our emotional well-being. We often spend so much time focusing on external accomplishments or the needs of others that we neglect our own emotional health. But creating love from within means recognizing that taking care of ourselves is just as important as taking care of anyone else. It involves setting boundaries, saying no when necessary, and learning to protect our mental and emotional space. Just as we wouldn't expect someone to run a marathon without rest, we shouldn't expect ourselves to give endlessly without replenishing our own energy. For example, consider a person who is constantly helping others at the expense of their own well-being. They may feel drained, anxious, or resentful because they have neglected their own needs. In their quest to be the perfect friend, partner, or co-worker, they have lost touch with themselves. However, by practicing self-love, they can learn to set healthy boundaries. They might start by recognizing when they feel overwhelmed and choosing to take time for themselves, whether it's going for a walk, reading a book, or simply saying no to additional responsibilities. This shift doesn't mean they love others any less. It means they recognize the importance of loving and caring for themselves as well. Self-care isn't selfish. It's an essential part of building a foundation of self-love. When we learn to love ourselves, we stop seeking validation from others. This shift is liberating. Instead of relying on others to define our worth or fill an emotional void, we become more self-sufficient in our emotional needs. This is where the concept of becoming the love we seek comes into play. When we are grounded in self-love, we no longer need someone else to make us feel loved or validated. We start to radiate love from within, and that energy attracts healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Take the example of someone who is constantly seeking approval from others. This person may seek out relationships that are based on neediness or emotional dependency. They may feel empty without constant affirmation or attention. However, as they begin to develop self-love, they realize that they don't need others to fill the void. They become more confident, more secure in who they are, and more capable of giving love freely without expecting anything in return. Their relationships shift from being based on need to being based on mutual respect and growth. Moreover, when we love ourselves unconditionally, we stop settling for less than we deserve. We stop tolerating disrespect, mistreatment, or unhealthy dynamics. Instead, we create space for relationships that reflect the love and respect we have for ourselves. We stop looking for someone to complete us and instead look for someone who complements us, someone who supports our growth, and who offers love as an equal partner. The transformation from seeking love externally to creating love within is not only about romantic relationships. It extends to all areas of life. When we love ourselves, we engage more authentically with others. We feel more connected to the world around us, and we are able to navigate challenges with greater resilience and grace. This inner love becomes a wellspring from which all other relationships flow. In essence, creating love from within is a profound shift in how we view ourselves and our place in the world. It's a shift from external dependence to internal self-sufficiency, from seeking approval to radiating self-acceptance, and from feeling incomplete to recognizing our inherent wholeness. By practicing self-love every day, we begin to live a life filled with deeper meaning, connection, and joy. And in doing so, we attract the love and respect we truly deserve. When we think of love, we often envision it as something that must be found. Movies, books, and even society at large have romanticized the idea that love is a treasure waiting for us to discover. Something that exists outside of ourselves, hidden away until we find the right person or the right moment. We chase this external source of love, convinced that once we find it, our lives will be complete. But this external pursuit of love is ultimately flawed, because love, in its purest form, is not something that comes from outside of us. It is something we must create within ourselves. The belief that love is something to be sought externally is what leads to the feeling of lack that many people experience in their relationships. We spend so much time searching for love outside of ourselves that we fail to recognize that it has always been within us, waiting to be uncovered. When we continuously look outside ourselves to feel loved, validated, or worthy, we inadvertently create a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. The more we search, the more we feel as though something is missing. This pursuit of external love often leaves us feeling empty, because we're relying on others to fulfill our emotional needs, rather than nurturing and meeting those needs within ourselves. Imagine a person who is constantly seeking validation from others, whether through romantic relationships, friendships, or social media. This person might believe that love is something they need to find in someone else, and that once they do, everything will fall into place. However, the reality is that the more they seek love from others, the more they come to rely on external approval. They constantly feel like they're not enough unless someone else validates them. This feeling of inadequacy stems from the belief that love is something external, that it is dependent on other people's opinions or behaviors. The person might find themselves in a cycle of disappointment as they seek affection or approval from others, only to feel unfulfilled when it's not given in the way they expect. On the flip side, True love does not come from seeking external validation. When we start to realize that love is something we have to create from within, we break free from this cycle of emotional dependency. We stop looking outside ourselves for fulfillment, and instead, we begin to cultivate love from the inside out. Love is not something that can be found in someone else's words or actions. It is something that comes from a deeper connection to who we are. It begins with accepting ourselves, embracing our worth, and choosing to love ourselves unconditionally. This is where the concept of building love comes into play. Love is something you build, not something you find. When we think of love as a process of construction, we begin to understand that it requires intentional effort and practice. It is not an event or a one-time experience, but rather a continuous process of self-discovery and self-care. This process is deeply rooted in self-love. We must learn to love ourselves before we can truly love others. The foundation of all love, whether it's romantic love, familial love, or friendship, begins with how we treat ourselves. If we don't recognize our own worth, if we don't appreciate ourselves for who we are, then we will struggle to experience meaningful love in our relationships. Take the example of someone who has spent years in unfulfilling relationships, always seeking the approval or affection of others. They may feel empty inside, constantly looking for someone to fill the emotional void they perceive within themselves. But once they begin the journey of self-love, everything changes. Self-love is not about being narcissistic or self-absorbed. It is about treating yourself with the same kindness, compassion, and respect that you would give to someone you truly care about. It is about recognizing that you are worthy of love, not because of what you do or how others see you, but because you're simply you. This journey of self-love involves taking responsibility for our own happiness. It's about understanding that no one else can make us happy if we do not first create that happiness within ourselves. We cannot expect others to fill our emotional voids or make us feel worthy. The responsibility for our emotional well-being lies within us. Practicing self-love means learning to meet our own emotional needs. It's about setting healthy boundaries, practicing self-compassion, and taking care of ourselves physically, emotionally, and mentally. When we begin to prioritize ourselves in this way, we not only create a strong sense of self-worth, but we also lay the foundation for healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Another important aspect of building love from within is learning to embrace our imperfections. Many people struggle with the belief that they are only worthy of love if they meet certain standards of perfection. They might try to earn love by being the perfect partner, friend, or parent, believing that they need to be flawless in order to be loved. However, true love comes from embracing our imperfections and learning to love ourselves, flaws and all. It's about accepting the fact that we are human and that making mistakes is part of the process of growth. When we love ourselves unconditionally, we stop trying to be perfect and start embracing our unique qualities, knowing that they are what make us who we are. Consider someone who is constantly striving to meet the expectations of others, always working hard to please people or to be perfect in their relationships. They might believe that in order to be loved, they must conform to certain standards or behaviors. But when they begin practicing self-love, they realize that they don't need to change who they are in order to deserve love. They can be authentic, they can make mistakes, and they can still be worthy of love. This shift allows them to show up in relationships as their true selves, not as a version of themselves that is trying to meet others' expectations. This authenticity not only improves their own sense of self-worth, but it also leads to deeper, more meaningful connections with others. Once we begin to love ourselves fully, something incredible happens. Love starts to radiate outward. When we have cultivated self-love and self-acceptance, we stop seeking validation from others, and instead, we become the source of love for those around us. This shift is not about needing others to fulfill us or make us feel good about ourselves, but about creating an energy of love that naturally attracts others. When you're comfortable in your own skin and love who you are, you begin to attract people who reflect that same love and respect. For example, think of someone who has worked on their self-love and has developed a strong sense of self-worth. They're not looking for others to complete them or to make them feel validated. Instead, they offer love freely, knowing that their worth is not tied to the opinions or actions of others. As a result, they begin to attract people who appreciate them for who they are. People who love them unconditionally and without judgment. This is because they have created a space of love within themselves, and that energy is reflected back in the relationships they build. In contrast, someone who is constantly seeking love from others, looking for external validation, will often find themselves in unhealthy relationships where their needs are not met. They might attract people who are not capable of providing the love they desire, or they may find themselves in emotionally draining situations where they feel unappreciated or unloved. When love is sought externally, it is often fleeting and conditional. But when love is created from within, it becomes a constant, reliable source of emotional fulfillment. The more we practice self-love, the more we realize that we are not incomplete without a partner, and we do not need anyone to complete us. True love is not about finding someone who fills a void within us. It is about meeting someone who complements us, someone who shares in our values, who supports our growth, and who loves us as we are. But even in the absence of a partner, we are whole because we have already created love from within. We are not waiting for someone else to complete us. We are whole and fulfilled on our own. As love begins to shine from within, it transforms how we engage with others. It allows us to enter relationships from a place of abundance rather than need. We no longer seek to control or manipulate others to meet our emotional needs. Instead, we enter into relationships with an open heart, offering love freely without expectation. This creates a foundation for healthier, more balanced relationships where both partners are able to grow, support each other, and share in the joy of unconditional love. In the end, love is not something that we find, it is something that we create. When we cultivate self-love, we begin to radiate love outward, and we naturally attract people who reflect that same love. This process is not about searching for love in external circumstances. It's about realizing that love has always been inside of us, waiting to be recognized and expressed. By loving ourselves unconditionally, we create a life filled with love, connection, and fulfillment, and we invite others to share in that love. The realization that love is not something you seek outside of yourself, but something you create from within, is truly transformative. For much of our lives, we are conditioned to think that love is something external, something we must search for in others, in relationships, in material success, or in external validation. This belief leads many people to chase after love like it's a goal to be reached, a treasure to be found. However, when we come to understand that love is not something we can find outside ourselves, but something we must cultivate within, it shifts everything. This understanding can be the key that unlocks a deeper, more fulfilling connection with ourselves and the world around us. When you shift from seeking love to realizing that love is something you must create from within, the whole narrative changes. You stop looking to others to fulfill you, validate you, or complete you. Instead, you begin the process of nurturing love within yourself, accepting yourself as you are, and embracing every part of who you are. This self-created love is the foundation of all other relationships, because it is only when you truly love and accept yourself that you can truly give and receive love from others in a healthy, balanced way. The search for love no longer becomes a search for validation, but rather a process of self-discovery and self-acceptance. Take the example of someone who has spent years in a pattern of seeking love in romantic relationships, only to find that no matter how much affection or attention they receive, it never feels like enough. They might think that once they find the right person, everything will be perfect and they will finally feel loved. However, The truth is that no amount of external love can fill the emptiness of a person who hasn't yet learned to love themselves. They may be attracting relationships based on neediness, dependency, or insecurity. As a result, their relationships often feel unfulfilling, and they end up seeking more and more from others, but never finding lasting satisfaction. The key to breaking this cycle lies in understanding that love starts from within. The love that you so desperately seek outside of yourself has been inside of you all along. It's just waiting to be acknowledged and nurtured. This process of self-love is not a destination, but rather a lifelong journey. It's about continuously practicing kindness toward yourself, acknowledging your worth, and embracing your flaws as part of your unique, beautiful human experience. The more you practice loving yourself, the more you will start to feel fulfilled on your own. And that sense of fulfillment will radiate outward into your relationships, attracting love in its most genuine, healthy form. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is the gift of unconditional self-love. This type of love is not based on conditions like success, appearance, or the approval of others. It is the love you give yourself simply because you exist, because you're worthy of love simply by being human. This kind of self-love isn't about perfection or being flawless. Rather, it's about accepting yourself in all your glory and imperfection. It's about looking at yourself with compassion rather than judgment and seeing your worth independent of external circumstances. For instance, think of a person who has always been critical of themselves because they didn't meet certain societal expectations. Perhaps they feel they haven't achieved the career milestones they thought they should by a certain age. Or they compare themselves to others and feel inadequate. This person might find themselves feeling disconnected from the love they wish to experience. But when they begin to love themselves unconditionally, they stop measuring their worth against external metrics and instead start recognizing their value as a person, independent of any achievements or external approval. As they embrace their own worth, they begin to experience a deeper sense of inner peace and fulfillment. The path to loving yourself begins with embracing every part of who you are, even the parts you may have been taught to reject or suppress. It involves accepting your mistakes, your imperfections, your vulnerabilities, and your strengths. When we reject parts of ourselves, we create a barrier to love. But when we embrace all parts of ourselves, we begin to break down those barriers and allow love to flow freely. This process isn't about self-indulgence or narcissism. Rather, it's about giving yourself the love and compassion that you so readily give to others. You are worthy of the same kindness, patience, and acceptance that you offer the people you love. By nurturing yourself in this way, you begin to shift the way you see the world and your relationships. You stop looking for love to fix you, and you start building a foundation of self-love that enables you to engage with others from a place of abundance, not scarcity. One of the greatest advantages of creating love from within is that it frees you from emotional dependence. When you rely on others to fill the emotional voids within you, you create unhealthy relationships based on need rather than mutual respect and love. You may find yourself in relationships where you are constantly seeking validation, attention, or approval, and the emotional toll of this can be exhausting for both you and your partner. But when you love yourself, you no longer need others to complete you. Instead, you approach relationships from a place of wholeness, where both partners can give and receive love without the need for constant validation or approval. You're no longer seeking love to feel whole, you already are whole, and your relationships become an opportunity for mutual growth, respect, and support. Think of a person who, in the past, has been emotionally dependent on their partner. They might have found themselves in relationships where they sought constant reassurance, attention, and affection because they didn't feel complete without it. But as they learn to love themselves and build their own sense of worth, they begin to realize that they don't need anyone else to fill the emotional void within them. As a result, their relationships become healthier and more balanced. They stop seeking validation from their partner and start engaging with them as equals, building a deeper, more fulfilling connection based on mutual love and respect. When you love yourself fully, something remarkable happens. You begin to radiate that love outwards. Your self-love becomes magnetic, drawing in people who resonate with your energy and who are capable of loving you in return. But the key is that you don't need to rely on them to feel loved. Your sense of self-worth and love is no longer contingent on others. You begin to love not from a place of need, but from a place of abundance. For example, someone who has worked on cultivating self-love will not enter a relationship seeking to complete themselves. Instead, they will enter a relationship already feeling whole, confident, and secure. They don't need their partner to fulfill them or validate them. They are already fulfilled on their own. As a result, they are able to form deeper, healthier relationships where love is freely given and received without the underlying need for approval or validation. This shift creates a foundation of mutual respect, trust, and emotional security in relationships, making them more sustainable and fulfilling. The idea of love as a journey of self-discovery is a powerful one. It's about recognizing that love is not something you will eventually find as if it's hidden somewhere out there. Instead, love is something you cultivate every day through self-acceptance, kindness, and intentional practice. As you engage in this journey, you begin to uncover parts of yourself that you may have previously neglected or rejected. You learn to integrate those parts and accept yourself fully. As you do so, love begins to radiate from you not as something that needs to be sought after, but as something that flows naturally from within. The more you practice self-love, the more you will realize that love is not a destination, but a journey. It is not something that you arrive at once you find the right person or achieve certain goals. Love is a continuous process of growing, evolving, and learning to embrace both your light and dark aspects. It's about finding peace with who you are, independent of external circumstances, and letting that love guide your interactions with others. By shifting your perspective and recognizing that love is something you create from within, you can begin to experience love in a deeper, more authentic way. You can stop searching for love outside of yourself and instead focus on building a solid foundation of self-love. When you do this, you will no longer feel the need to seek approval, validation, or external affection to feel complete. You will be whole and at peace with who you are. And the love you create from within will naturally attract others who share the same energy and values. This is the true path to love, a journey of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-love. As you embrace this process, you will find that love is not something that happens to you, but something you can cultivate from within. The more you love yourself, the more love you will attract, and the more fulfilling your relationships will become. Love is not an external goal to be reached, but a way of being that starts with you. And there you have it. The love that you've been searching for isn't out there somewhere. It's already within you. When you start building that love from the inside, it becomes the foundation for everything in your life, your relationships, your self-worth, your happiness. The real key is not finding someone else to complete you, but discovering how to complete yourself first. True love is not a destination. It's a continuous journey of self-love and self-discovery. So, what will you do with this newfound knowledge? Will you keep searching for love in the wrong places? Or will you embrace the love that's been waiting for you inside all along? Remember, love isn't something you receive from others. It's something you build, it's something you create, and it starts with you. I hope this video helped you see love in a whole new light. If you found value in today's content, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more insights that can transform your life. And don't forget, if you've been impacted by today's video, you can show your support through Super Thanks. Every little bit helps keep this community thriving. Thanks for watching, and remember, love is a journey, and it starts with loving yourself first. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and keep shining.